Howdy y'all, my name is Josh and welcome back to another Longhorn tactical video. And I want to compare the Warrior Mini 3 coming from Olight and the Fenix PD35 version 3. Both of these are going to be pretty compact 18650 flashlights. They're going to be hovering around the 1700 lumen range. So let's go ahead and check out both of these lights. Alright, and now let's take a close-up look at both of these beautiful lights. Looking at the emitters here, I know that Olight doesn't talk about what emitters they use, but if I had to guess, it's going to be the same as the Fenix, as they both look like a luminous SFT40 LED, and both are going to have a cool white hue to them. And now moving on to the side switches of these lights, they're both going to have a battery indicator embedded in them. So for the Warrior Mini 3, it's going to stay constantly on, and it's going to be a tricolor system, meaning that it's going to go from green to orange and then red, indicating the power. And it's going to stay on, like I said, until I turn the light off. And then for the PD35 version 3, once I turn it on, it will give me the indication, and then it'll go off after 3 seconds. And as you can see, it's green flashing. It goes from green to green flashing and then red to red flashing, which isn't my favorite because I feel like the color is more intuitive because you don't have to look for the flashing, you can just look for the color. But I mean, they're both pretty effective for what they're trying to do. And then taking a look at the knurling of both of these lights, it's kind of subjective. I think I like the Fenix style of knurling a little bit better because it just shows how much attention to detail there is and how finely machined these bodies are. But again, pretty subjective. And as well as that, looking at the pocket clips, I mean, obviously the two-way pocket clip of the Olight is pretty hard to beat, meaning that you can put it on a hat and use it like a impromptu headlamp, but you can still carry it bezel down or bezel up, whatever way. Whereas with the PD35 version 3, you're kind of stuck with it being bezeled down with this one-way pocket clip. And now comparing the tail design of both of these lights, hands down, it's going to the Olight. Because first of all, it can tail stand just like that. It has this nano molded technology right here, meaning that it's pretty easy to clean off just by rubbing your thumb over it whenever there's metal shavings there. And there's going to be metal shavings there because this is magnetic, meaning that you can stick it to any surface and it will hold its own weight and illuminate whatever it's pointing at. I am not a big fan of this Fenix tail cap because it's pretty basic. I mean, I like the fins having those lanyard holes, but where you think it would tail stand, it can't because that clearance is not quite there. And so you try to tail stand it and it's just very disappointing. And so I'm gonna be siding with the Olight on this one. And now putting up the specs and run times on screen, you can see that they're more or less the same whenever it comes to spacing and actual output, but there are some things that I want to outline here. The Olight is going to have a much nicer eco mode as it's only going to be half a lumen, and that's going to be going for a whopping 100 days. But if you just want sheer brightness, I would try out the Fenix maybe. And something I want to draw your attention to while I have the run times on screen is how close the low, medium, and high outputs are to the Fenix ones. I mean, especially for the mid and high, there's going to be basically no difference whenever you're shining it around. But how much more runtime the Olight gets out of its battery. I mean, talking about 18 hours for 120 lumens and then 215 down to 30 minutes for the high output is going to be very nice. And now putting up the candela, throw, and maximum output of these lights, you can see that the PD35 version 3 is going to be slightly dimmer by only 50 lumens. However, I can say after using this light, it just looks brighter, and that's coming from the more focused beam and that higher candela. And especially considering that this has more than 100 yards of throw over the Warrior Mini 3, if you're looking for something that has more throw, I would look at this, and again, it just looks brighter. I also like the fact that both strobes are going to be on the highest setting, meaning that it's going to be a nice splash of tactile for these very compact lights. And now finally, I'm going to throw up the dimensions and resistances. And as you can see, the Olight Warrior Mini 3 is going to be more compact. I mean, you can just see that off the bat. However, it is going to be a fair bit heavier than the PD35. And like all good flashlights, these are both going to be waterproof. However, the PD35 is only going to be 1 meter impact resistance, where the Olight has been tested for 1.5 meter impact resistance. And as for my final thoughts on this matchup here, I think it's pretty clear, but I really like the Warrior Mini 3 better. Everything from the build quality to the user interface to the specs is just going to be strictly better in my opinion. However, that being said, every flashlight has its place and has its niche, so that's not to say that the PD35 version 3 doesn't have its upsides. The Fenix light is going to be lighter in weight, it's going to be $10 cheaper, and as well as that, it's going to have a farther throw. And another thing I want to mention is the battery is where you recharge this. It's going to have a micro USB built into the battery itself. And while it's not USB-C, it's still very handy. And if your cord breaks, you don't have to go buy a proprietary Olight charging pad like with the Warrior Mini 3, you can just grab another micro USB cord. And as well as that, this can take generic 18650 batteries as opposed to the Warrior Mini 3, which will only take Olight brand 18650s. But I mean, otherwise the Warrior Mini 3 is just going to be superior. I think that you definitely get what you pay for. You can really feel how much quality they pack into this light. The UI is going to be amazing. You've already heard me talk about the specs and just the general build of this light. I just think it's going to be better for EDC and the small amount of tactical stuff that this is designed for. But that of course is just going to be my opinion. I love both of these lights, they're both super cool. So if you have anything to add to this conversation, any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below and I would love to hear from you. Sadly though, that's about all I have to say on these lights. I really hope that y'all enjoyed. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sticking around here till the end, and we will see you in the next one.